Everything changed the day I saw my mom's car parked in front of that house. She was supposed to be at home, but there she was, betraying us to Edwin Robinson. The discovery shattered my world. My father found them half-dressed, and his rage was terrifying. He took her car and left her with nothing. Our family was destroyed that day. This is my story, a brutal revelation of deception and revenge, seen through the eyes of a son caught in the middle. I really don't know why I never got to be close to my mom. Maybe it was because of the way I saw my father treat her. She constantly criticized him for trivial things that were never really his fault. He spent his entire married life being torn apart, and I never understood why I was still with them, and I was so unhappy. He was born a year after they got married, their only child. My mother is an attractive woman. She is 40 years old now. In the old photos, she was noticeably beautiful in her youth. Maybe that's what attracted my dad to her. But their marriage has lasted much longer than their love lasted. I have vague memories of happy moments in my early childhood, but they feel like echoes of a distant past. While I was 13, I was convinced that they would get divorced, but for unknown reasons they never did. It's not that my mom was mad at me. She just seemed to be angry with the world. I was too afraid to ask my dad about their relationship, so I forced myself to find out for myself. My name is Ron Francis. I am 16 years old, and I will start my last year of high school next month. I will be graduating with the class of 58 and hope to attend state college to start working on my university degree. My dad, Sam Francis, is someone I really admire. He is smart, knowledgeable, and always helps me with my homework, especially in mathematics. My mother, Helen Francis, well, you probably already have an idea of what she's like. Both my parents would be considered attractive by most people. As for me, I'm still growing up. Since joining the swim team, I've gained some muscle, and my girlfriend tells me she looks good. I believe him. My father works as a middle manager at an insurance company, earning enough so my mom wouldn't have to work. While I was little, when I turned 15, I started wondering why he never got a job. She didn't even volunteer to keep busy. He had no hobbies and didn't seem to socialize much with the women in the neighborhood. As I was at school during the weekdays, he had no idea how he was spending his time. During my summer vacation, I worked at the new supermarket as a checkout assistant, helping customers with their purchases and making deliveries on my bike. When I got a driving license, he used the store van to make deliveries, which kept me busy most of the time. Because of that, I still didn't know what my mother did during the summer. I found out by accident. That's how these things usually happen, right? One afternoon, I was making a delivery of beer bottles to an old lady, and when I arrived at his house, there was a family car parked next to it. It was my mom's old Pontiac, a Model 49. I recognized the shredded fender even before I checked the license plate. I had no idea who lived in that house. After making the delivery, I sat in the van, looking at the car, wondering. Sacami Libretta, and I wrote down the address with a big question mark next to it. Then I put the booklet away and went on with my rounds. I didn't think about it again until dinner that night. As usual, my dad asked my mom how her day had been. The usual, she replied wearily. I was at home all day, not much to do. I just sat on the back porch in the shade and read for a while. I looked at her, looking for some sign that she was lying. It seemed completely normal, but I knew the truth. A strange feeling tightened in my stomach and did not disappear even after dinner. Later that evening, I sat at my desk thinking about what I had said. Sack me notebook and copy the address in my school folder. I needed to find out who lived there. I remembered that the library had a reverse directory, a book that made it possible to look up an address and find out who lived there. I made a mental note to myself that I would review it as soon as I could. The next day, during lunch, I made a quick trip to the library. I looked through the directory and found a name. Edwin S. Robinson. He had no ideas if he lived alone or with his family, but at least he had something. I wasn't sure what to do next. On Tuesday, I saw my mother's car there at 2:30 in the afternoon. Maybe I could stop by again at the same time and see if she was there again. On Wednesday, I slightly modified my delivery route, and I passed by the Robinsons' house about 2:45. His car wasn't there. It had been something punctual. But on Thursday, as I was driving through our neighborhood around 2 o'clock, I noticed that my mom's car was missing from our driveway. Checked my delivery schedule, I made a small adjustment, and I headed back towards the Robinsons' house. And there he was again. Now I had a mystery on my hands. I just didn't know what to do about it. Everyone needs someone to trust. To me, that person was Minobia. Penny Lane. She was the only person I could trust with something like that, without the whole town knowing. I should mention that I live in a small town. People say that in places like this, everyone knows everyone. But it is not entirely true. Our village is not so small. Or maybe people just don't socialize like they used to. I can't even say that I know half of the people who live here. Of course, we only have one high school, 2 supermarkets, and a single outdoor cinema. But there's still a lot I don't know about my surroundings. Penny, whose real name is Peony, and I grew up together. We'll both be signed soon. And though we've been friends all our lives, we have recently started to see each other in a different way. She is beautiful, and I am lucky to call them Minobia stable. He's also incredibly smart, so I turn to her when I need advice. I had no adults to talk to about this, certainly not with my parents. As Penny saw almost every day, I didn't have to wait long to tell him what I had seen. I wanted to see if she had any ideas about what we should do next. I was not disappointed. Well, there are a couple of things we could try, he said confidently. Like what? I asked, surprised that he had a fast plan. I could pretend that I'm conducting a survey and ask them some questions. I could say I'm from the school newspaper, try to figure out how many people read it. I might casually ask how many people live in the house, whether they are men or women, adults or children. That might work, I admitted, but my mom shuts the door on people like that. It's always a risk, but if someone responds, we could get important information. They are Rio. Why do you have to do it and not me? I asked. This is my problem. They might recognize you or know something about your family. It's safer this way. Penny was always one step ahead. We spent an hour coming up with the perfect questions for the survey. Penny said that the right questions, they could make people reveal more than they realized. In the end, we had 7 solid questions that she was sure that they would give us valuable information about the Robinsons' house. He planned to visit her house the next morning at 10 o'clock. If there was no one at home, I would try again at 7 in the evening. But I also had a job. Ron, I want you to be there at 7 in the morning. He indicated to me. I need to know who leaves the house and at what time. I accepted. And so, we already had a plan. At 6 o'clock, 500 the next morning, I was already in my position, hidden behind a big set across the street. At 7 o'clock, a man whom I supposed to be Mr. Robinson. He came out, carrying a newspaper under one arm and a small briefcase in the other. He walked to his car, put his things in the back seat, and got in. He left the car, running a few minutes before a woman got out, locked the door, and get in the passenger seat. Together, they went towards the city. That answered some of my questions. They both came out at the same time, but there were still mysteries to be solved. I rode my bike to a nearby phone booth. I put a nickel in the slot and dialed Penny's number. She replied almost immediately, like I've been waiting on the phone. What happened? I asked anxiously. Not much, I said. He left just before 7, and I think his wife followed them a couple of minutes later. They left for the city. We didn't come, and she locked the door. So, I doubt anyone was home. Good job, Ron. What was she wearing? I asked almost as a reflection. He was dressed in a suit and tie with a hat. She was wearing a simple dress, gray and blue, I think. I replied, trying to remember the details. Well, it looks like they both have jobs. The next thing is to find out where they work. Can you follow the Tomorrows? I asked with a voice full of emotion. I can try, but maybe I won't be able to keep up with my bike, I admitted. Yes, that could be a problem, Penny said thoughtfully. I knew I should stay silent while she came up with a plan. She was good at this. Ron, I think I should go to the library and check the voter registration list. Sometimes it includes occupations, which could tell us what they do for a living. I hadn't thought of that. That's fine. Can you do it for me? I have to work today, and maybe I won't have time. Sure, leave it to me. Just remember to check the house around 2 o'clock this afternoon. He reminded me. I'll meet you at my house after dinner. Don't be late. I want to try that survey with them. Roger that. See you then. Good luck and thank you, Penny. You're a good friend. I told him sincerely. I'm careful, Ron. Don't do anything reckless. We still know what's really going on. He warned me. Yeah, I'll be fine. See you later. I finished before I hung up the phone. I rode my bike to the store. I parked it in the cargo shed, as usual. I took the van keys from the shipping counter and started with the deliveries. I usually took care of the restaurant orders first, and the day was no different. But I had to admit that my mind wasn't fully on the job. I was too worried about what my mom would be doing at Edwin's. Robinson. It was one thing for her to be distant or even cruel, but it was something completely different that he cheated on my father. I had looked up the word adulteress in the dictionary, and it was not a nice term. It described a woman who betrayed her husband. It was hard to believe, but I was beginning to think it was possible. The day passed quickly, and I was too busy to think about the secret visits from my mother. But when I was coming home after work, the thoughts came back to my mind. If she was cheating on me, what would I do? I would tell my father. Could I do it? I didn't want to hurt him, but I couldn't let her get away with it either. I realized with a sense of resignation that she had decided that she was guilty, without any real proof. Maybe I'd been too quick to assume worse, just because I didn't like him. It wasn't a good feeling. There could be a perfectly innocent reason for her to be there. After all, she hadn't gone today. But on the other hand, he seemed to go only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. From rushing with dinner, I excused myself to go to Penny's house. My mom reminded me of the dishes, so I waited for my parents to finish eating before, to quickly wash and clean the kitchen. I'll be home at 9, my dad reminded me as he handed me the keys to the car. I will be, Dad. Thank you, I said sincerely. I wouldn't let him down. I got to Penny's house around 6:30. She was already waiting for me. Everything ready? I asked. Yes, I have the questionnaire right here, he said, showing a paper with the well-worded information. I used my dad's roll to make it look more official. I suddenly remembered the voter registration list. Or what did you find out? The list shows his occupation as a salesman and his wife's as a secretary. Both are registered as voters, he said confidently. He got in the car, and we drove to the Robinsons' house. It was still clear, but the sun would set in an hour. Penny had dressed herself carefully, a simple navy skirt, a blouse, white and simple black shoes. I wanted to look professional to make it more likely to have their questions answered. I parked a few blocks away, and she got out of the car. Decimi suerte, he said with a nervous smile. You'll be fine. I know, I said calmly. If anyone could pull it off, it was Penny. He came back about 10 minutes later with his cheeks are flushed with excitement. Ron, you won't believe it, he breathed. They both came to the door and started answering questions. Then they started arguing about who had the right answers. Her eyes were shining. He was proud of her. Good job. Let's go somewhere and find out what we learned, I suggested. She felt, and we went to one of our favorite places by the river. Penny studied her notes in silence, lost in thought. I reminded myself not to interrupt her. Well, this is what we learned, it began. They both work and have no children. He is a Drudas salesman at a paper box company, and she is a secretary at the Columbia State Bank. He goes out of town on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and she takes the bus home those days. Ron was amazing. Once they started talking, they just didn't stop. I even improvised some additional questions at the time, she admitted. Wow, what else did you discover? Asked anxiously. Well, he grew up here. She is from Ben River. They met when he returned from Europe after the war. I know she can't have children. He hesitated, then added. He is actually a handsome man. Maybe your mom noticed that too. I frowned. They seem to be doing well financially. Let's go, Penny. I've been shopping for new furniture and just got a hi-fi and a TV of 21 inches. He said he's going to install the antenna this weekend. Well, then now we know about them, I said. That doesn't explain what my mom does at home. Not exactly, Penny admitted. But remember, he's in town all day on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He has time to go home in the evenings before picking up his wife from work. He frowned. I think the police call it opportunity when they are investigating someone. Suddenly, she sat up straight. Or what high school did your mom go to? She asked excitedly. To Jefferson, I replied. It's closed now. She is a triumphant River. That's the same high school he went to. That was one of my off-the-cuff questions. He added, beaming. It was amazing, Penny. He said, genuinely impressed. I was lucky to have her as a girlfriend. The more time I spent with her, the more I wanted to be with her. But this discovery changed everything. Mom and Edwin Robinson were the same age. They had gone to high school together. They must have met back then. But what was going on between them now? I sat in the car in silence for a long time. Penny was watching me waiting. This isn't right, is it? Finally, he said. No, he's not. I admitted. But we have no proof. I don't know what to do now. Penny was silent for a while. Then he spoke again. And if we scared your mother? She asked. He turns to her, surprised. What do you mean? And that's when Penny revealed her next plan, one that would get everything going. Lying in bed, Mr. Robinson must have been terrified because later I heard that he tried to hide in a closet while my dad was yelling at my mom. It was a terrible scene. Dad ripped the car keys out her purse. He stormed out and drove his car back home, something that never happened since the garage was always reserved for the dosh. I'm not sure how he got his own car back. Maybe he took a taxi. When I got home, the dosh was parked in the driveway, and Dad was sitting at the kitchen table with a drink, strong in front of him. There was no sign of my mother. I knew I had to play dumb or risk staying caught in the storm, so asked, "Where's Mom?" "He's not here," she said, sharply, her voice full of anger. "And he's not coming back." He practically spat out the words. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying my best to sound confused. "I found her in bed with another man's son," said his firm voice. "He cheated on us. She was unfaithful to me, and I'm going to divorce her." His words were clear and definitive. "Oh my God, Dad. Are you sure?" I asked, genuinely stunned. I expected him to be broken, maybe even confused, but instead, he was determined and full of anger, like a man looking for revenge. I've never seen this side of him before. It's hard not to be sure when they're practically naked, together on a bed. She murmured bitterly. Your mother didn't even try to deny it. He wasn't even looking at me while he was talking. He took another drink with his eyes fixed on the glass in front of him. She's going to pay for this, he growled. He won't have anything when this is over. He'll be lucky if he goes out with his clothes on. His fury was undeniable. I silently hoped that my mother would not return that night. I was afraid of what might happen if I did. But then I started to wonder, where was he? Where could he have gone? I needed to talk to Penny. I'm going to go to Penny's, I told Dad. I'm not hungry. He just nodded and took another drink. I rode my bike to Penny's house, pedaling for space. My mind spinning. When I got there, it was a mess. It took everything I had to tell him what had happened. It was the worst news imaginable. I sat with my head in my hands, feeling completely miserable. I wasn't good company that night, not for many nights afterwards. My mother had disappeared, and it would be a long time before I heard from her again. Surprisingly, Dad and I managed just fine on our own. We did the laundry, except for his shirts, that we sent to iron. And we even learned to iron, although not very well. We divide the tasks of the house, and we found out how to cook simple food, to be able to eat well and stay healthy. One day, Dad surprised me by giving me the keys for Mom's car. In fact, it was his car. I just let him drive it. I trust you with this, he told me. I promised to keep it in good condition and wash it every week, something I was already doing for Mom, so it wasn't a big deal. Not many older kids at my school. They had their own car, so I was feeling lucky. Meanwhile, Dad was struggling to get the divorce papers to her. It was difficult to locate her, but he finally found her at his aunt's house in Salem. Legal proceedings have begun since the reason for the divorce. It's infidelity, Dad told me. The court will not be kind to her. As for Mr. Robinson, I didn't know what would happen to him, but it was named as something called the corresponding one in the case. It took almost a year for the divorce to be finalized, and Mom ended up with almost nothing. He got $500, his clothes, and his jewelry. Dad said that's all he'll have to start over. Too many people in the village. I knew what I had done, and they would never let me forget it. 3 months after Mom left, Dad started dating someone new. Her name was Janine Carter. I was working in his office, and she had been a widow since the Korean War. Janine needed a job, so he came to work in my office. Dad explained one night, I've known her for years. I'm happy for him. He told me to be happy again. I had overcome the anger and the revenge I saw that first night. We talk a lot about the university, and he told me that the decision was mine, whether to go directly to the state university or spend 2 years at the local university. It depends if I get a swimming scholarship. I told him. Dad didn't seem too worried about money. Do what's best for you, he told me. Don't worry about the cost. That took a big weight off my shoulders. Penny and I are still close. She felt guilty about my parents' divorce, thinking that none of this would have happened if I hadn't suggested sending those letters. They were already unhappy. I reminded him. Maybe this was for the best. I lost contact with my mother, and I didn't make much effort to find her. She sent me a Christmas card with a return address in Salem, where his aunt had lived. I assumed he was still staying there. I never sent her a card in return, and I didn't feel bad about it. A few months later, a lawyer contacted us. My mother's aunt had passed away, and he had left me a small sum of money, a $100 bonus for my education. I barely remembered her, so I was surprised that he had left me something. But that money covered almost a third of my tuition for the first year at the state university, and for that I was grateful. Meet Janine. Dad introduced her to me at Thanksgiving. She had blonde hair, a big smile, and an optimistic personality. He was about 35 years old, not much younger than Dad. I could see why she liked me. She was cheerful and full of life, the exact opposite of how my mother had been in recent years. So I wasn't surprised when Dad told me that I was thinking of proposing to her so soon, how to finalize the divorce. If she accepts, she will move in with us, she told me. She's staying in the guest room until we get married. I had to laugh. Can you imagine people worrying about those things? In 1958, I said, the times were a-changin', but Dad was still playing by the old rules. Still, I was happy for him. At the end of June, I sat at the kitchen table with Janine, talking about college and my relationship with Penny. She was interested. I think it's sweet that you and Penny, they've been together since childhood, he said. Then he asked me something directly. That made me blush. Have they been intimate? No. Tart miad, surprised. She laughed. I had my first serious boyfriend when I was 15. We started talking about love. She mentioned her first husband to me. I thought I loved him, she said casually, but it turned out to be different. She didn't seem too upset about her death in Korea. Who said he died in Korea? She asked suddenly, looking confused. That's what Dad told me, I replied. She laughed again. It's not true. I quit, got a quickie divorce in Reno. He probably living in some trailer park in Idaho. I was stunned. Suddenly I felt up, excused myself, and drove straight to Penny's house. When I got there, he saw my face and knew something wasn't right. Ron, what's the matter? She asked worried. Take a deep breath. Penny, I said, we have a new mission. We have to find my mother. I had graduated, which meant that it was time to choose a military branch that would give me the best chance of becoming a pilot. Frank had been in the Air Force, so naturally he believed that was the best option. When I returned to Corvallis to start my summer job, I found another big surprise. Penny had tried to call me while I was up north. He left a number, but it was from a motel in Eugene, and when I returned, he had already left. That really got me thinking. With Lise gone, there was no one else I was excited to see except Mom and Frank. Penny and I had been incredibly close. Even though we were young, we had talked about marriage. We were only 18 at the time, but we were deeply in love. We had known each other since elementary school. After I moved to Oregon, we wrote letters for a while, but soon became clear that maintaining a long-distance relationship was difficult. I finally told him to move on because I wasn't planning on coming back soon. She knew she wasn't going to visit my father after what she had done to my mother. Sometime later, he wrote to me, telling me that he had met someone new, a nice guy with whom I had a lot in common. I think my letter hurt his feelings. At that moment, he thought he was in love with Lise, but Penny's message woke up something in me. I felt strange knowing I was with someone else. I didn't fully realize how strong my feelings toward her remained until I got that phone message. Now we were both 21, about to start our senior year of college, and we needed planning our future. The more I thought about my own future, two things kept coming back to my mind: Penny and flying. Now I had something to look forward to and someone I wanted to talk to. I decided to call Penny at home and find out what was going on in her life. I needed a private place to make the call, so I thought about my Aunt Hilda. I called her from the bedroom and explained what I wanted to do. She was happy to help me and told me I could refund her money for the call. Long distance. Why otras concessionarias? Usaba la camioneta de la empresa para los viajes de suministros. Why podía llevarme un auto usado a casa cada noche? Marty también me dijo que podía llevarme un coche los sábados. Y que trabajaba ese día. Los domingos, la concessionaria estaba cerrada. Nadie me había dicho que este era un trabajo de 6 días a la semana. Pero no me importaba. No era un trabajo difícil y pagaba bien. Además, estaba ganando más dinero que nunca. Para la noche del miércoles, finalmente fui a la casa de la tía Hilda. Para la marapeni. Estaba nervioso. No sabía qué esperar. Pero él me había llamado primero. Así que obviamente estaba pensando en mí. Después de la cena, me senté en la sala de estar. Y marqué el número de la operadora. Le di al pueblo de Penny y su número de teléfono. Después de una serie de clics, otra operadora conectó la llamada. El teléfono sonó. Un hombre contestó. No sonaba como el señor Lane, el padre de Penny. Hola. Es este Walnut 2009 to 1995 in Aberdeen? Pregunt con cuidado. Correcto. Pero nadie llamado Lane vive aquí, respondió el hombre. Oye vio. Perdón por molestarlo. Lentamente colg el teléfono. Me quid ali mirando el auricular confundido. Estaba seguro de que había marcado el número correcto. Lo había llamado tantas veces durante los años que podía hacerlo dormido. ¿Se habría mudado? La única manera de averiguarlo era enviar una carta a la antigua dirección. Wyver si la reenvían. Si recibía una respuesta, sabría dónde estaba su familia. Si la carta volvía sin abrir, no tendría manera de encontrarla. No tenía mucho que perder por un sello de 5 centavos. Escribía Penny una carta corta, diciendo que había recibido su mensaje, pero había perdido su llamada. Le dije que me habría encantado escuchar de ella. Y esperaba que estuviera bien. Terminé la carta con la esperanza de que pudiéramos empezar a escribirnos de nuevo. Luego cruz los dedos y la envi. Mama y Frank llamaban 2 veces al mes. Y siempre disfrutaba hablar con ellos. Aunque no estuviera en un lugar privado. Siempre esperaba esas llamadas. Mientras tanto, había visitado la oficina de reclutamiento de la Fuerza Aérea. Y hablado con un oficial. Con mi título universitario era eligible para la escuela de candidatos oficiales. Pero no había garantías de que me convertiría en piloto. No podían prometer nada. Pasé el verano trabajando en el lot de autos y ahorrando dinero. El trabajo no estaba mal. Conducía un coche diferente a casa cada noche. E incluso me proporcionaban medio tank de gasolina. Empecé a fijarme en que autos usados eran confiables y cuales no. Martilo noto. Eres más inteligente que la mayoría de los chicos universitarios. Mi dijo, para el día del trabajo mi último año había comenzado. Pero Penny seguía ausente en mi vida. Mientras deambulaba cerca de la base de la Guardia Costera. Note algo en lo que nunca había pensado antes. Tenía aviones. Vi un avión de transporte y algunos hidroaviones despegando. De repente, la Guardia Costera parecía una opción interesante. Podría ser mi mejor oportunidad para volar. Sabía que tenía que servir mi país. Pero no quería terminar en lugares como Vietnam. Si no podía convertirme en piloto. No tenía idea de cómo ganaría la vida. Terminaría vendiendo aspiradoras. El pensamiento era deprimente. Sin les para animarme, no estaba particularmente feliz. Tenía trabajo en Capital Motors y un coche para usar. Así que no podía cuidarme. Tenía dinero y podría haber salido con chicas. Pero no me interesaba en otras chicas. En lugar de eso pasaba mis fines de semana con amigos. Había eventos deportivos, tomaba unas cervezas. Y a veces jugaba baloncesto, pero nada serios. Tenía suerte de contar con la natación para llenar mi tiempo. Pero no disfrutaba tanto de mi éxito en el equipo como antes. Probablemente porque Liz no estaba ali para impulsarme a ser mejor. It's not that I didn't care, but I wasn't as motivated as I should have been. To be co-captain of the team. No one was saying anything, but I could sense his disappointment. Frank and Mom came to migration, bringing Latia Hilda with them. Enjoy the day with them. I was happy to have graduated with good grades, and now I could add a bachelor's degree to my resume. We had a wonderful dinner at Latia Hilda's house, better than in any restaurant. Mom and Frank gave me a nice jacket and pants, and Latia Hilda gave me a fancy dress shirt and a tie. All I needed was a new pair of dress shoes, and he would be ready for the business world. But first, I had a personal goal to reach. I could have taken the risk and avoided joining the Army, hoping not to get drafted, but I really wanted to fly, and the Army was my best chance. I also felt a duty to serve my country, but I didn't want to die in some foreign land, so I decided to join the Coast Guard. It wasn't my first choice, but I would probably stay away from Vietnam, and there was still the possibility that I could become a pilot. I traveled to Portland to get ready. After my physical examination, I had a couple of weeks to say goodbye to Mom, Frank, and Hilda, Marty, and my friends from Oregon State. This was the beginning of the rest of my life. I was hoping something good would happen. 6 weeks later, I was excited to be accepted into the flight school. We would start with training aircraft, and I didn't care if they were old Viplanes. I just wanted to fly. It turned out that I got my wish, but it was more difficult than I expected. The engineering program was overwhelming. I had no idea learning to be a pilot was so complex. Navigation, flight controls, aircraft systems, emergency procedures, and much more. What helped me to keep going? My determination to succeed. I refused to let anything stop me. Pacey countless hours studying to make sure I make it. The flying part was the easiest for me. I wasn't afraid of the plane, and it seemed to have a natural feeling for him. That was a big reason, which is why I succeeded in flight school. Although the studies were hard, I fell on top of the world. During my time at the Pensacola Flight School, and be great friends. 2 of them became my best friends. Tink, Taylor, and Chip Billstrom. The 3 of us loved to fly, and we work hard to earn our wings. We were helping each other, even if it was just to cheer us up. When the going got tough, we were drinking beer, chasing girls, and we became like brothers. Tink was a good kid from North Alabama, as smart as a whip. He often helped me with the book work, while I was helping him with the flying part. Chip was more like me, a boy from the plain of Fargo, Dakota del Norte. He had to work harder than the others to become a good pilot. Flying didn't come naturally to him, but he tried very hard. At the Officer Candidate School, OCS, we were expected to act like leaders and gentlemen. Well, almost all the time. We needed to relax from time to time because the pressure was intense. Our first experience with an amphibious aircraft, it was with the Grumman Albatross. It was a huge and sturdy plane that he could land so much in the water, as in landing strips. I loved it from the moment I saw it. Sure, it was slow and noisy, and vulnerable to salt water corrosion, but it was built like a tank. As Tink would say, we were luckier than a dog, with 2 tails when flying these planes. The Albatross could reach 200 knots on a good day, but usually flew at 80 to 130 knots. We didn't care, unless it was an emergency mission, in which every minute counts. By the time we graduated from flight school, Tink, Chip, and me, we had become incredibly close. We had visited almost every bar in Pensacola, and we had had a lot of fun. Having our pilot wings, he gave us a lot of attention. Our only problem? The pilots of the Navy, the jockeys of the jets. They had more prestige than us, but we were defending well. During all this time, I was thinking about Penny. I had no idea where he was. I knew I wanted to be a writer, but that was all. It had been more than 4 years since the last time I saw her. I started to think about who might know where I was. Then, I remembered Dorothy Perkins. After several failed attempts, I found his phone number. "Hello, Dorothy. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Ron Francis," I said hesitantly. "Oh, of course, I remember you, Ron. How do you do?" he asked cheerfully. "I'm fine, thank you." Dorothy, the reason I'm calling. I'm looking for Penny Lane." There was a pause. Oh, I don't know where he is, Ron," he admitted. "She left town with a guy. Bry was her name, I think. He mentioned New York, but I'm not sure." "New York?" "So, I was with a guy." I asked. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear more. "Yes, Bry on something." Dorothy continued. "I don't think they were very close. If you know what I mean." "You mean she wasn't engaged or anything?" I asked, expecting it better. "Oh no, he told me he was just a boyfriend. Nothing serious." I felt somewhat relieved. and Dorothy was thanking him for his help. I asked her to pass me a message if I ever see Penny again. When I got off the phone, I felt better. I was no closer to finding Penny, but there was hope, and that was enough to keep looking. "Hi, I'm Bach Rogers, and this is my partner Steve Canyon," I started. The girls immediately laughed, so I knew we were off to a good start. "Can we buy them a drink?" Chip asked with his best smile. "Of course, if it's okay with my husband," the blonde replied. "Myria Chip," and he looked at me. "And Boz, we think the same." Oh, too late. From behind the Hall of Viller, two huge guys showed up. They seemed to measure more than 2 meters, and they weighed at least 227 kilos each, with crocodile tattoos on the eyelids. We were in serious trouble. "What are these two assholes doing?" he asked from across the street. "I'm sorry, buddy. We didn't know the girls were with someone. It was our mistake," Chip said quickly. "Error is little," added his friend, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor, with my jaw aching with pain, seeing stars. I'm a pilot, not a fighter. These guys could kill us, and we were fighting back. So I got up and headed toward the door. I had no idea where Chip was. Then the big guy hit me again, this time in the ear. I fell again. A sharp pain ran through my head, and a ringing of little bells filled my ears. This was really wrong. When I tried to get up again, I saw Chip leaning against the wall. The other guy was hitting him repeatedly in the stomach and ribs. Chip tried to protect himself, but we were no match for these brutes. I thought we might end up in the hospital or worse. Then we were saved. The military police arrived just in time. I guess the waiter knew his name. They broke up the fight. Those two imbeciles were hitting on our wives. One of the big guys yelled, "You guys from the militia? They think they can take whatever they want. The next time I see them, there will be no military police around, and they will regret it." I believed him. This was a place we should avoid from here on out. We went out, so validating the bar, with the help of the military police. Chip was in bad shape. I thought maybe he had broken a rib or two, and he was right. I could barely breathe. The military police offered, "Take us back to the base to receive medical help." I would probably have a sore jaw, maybe a couple of loose teeth and a sore ear, but otherwise I would live. Did they never learn? One of the military policemen scolded us. "Stay away from local problems. Go downtown if you want to meet girls." Those two women thought that the little scene. She was hilarious. "I bet you guys do too, huh?" The rude non-commissioned officer scoffed. "We deserve the reprimand. Ignorance can be very painful, especially for Chip. We are recovering from our injuries." Although Chip was out of service for 3 weeks, while he was recovering, he took the fun out of us. As Chip rightly pointed out, we were pilots, not fighters. We were out of reach. I was expecting some repercussions after the incident at the bar, but they never came. We got to talk about using judgment better by our commanding officer. But that was all. I guess they thought we had learned our lesson. If it happened again, we wouldn't be so lucky. A couple of weeks later, I met the military policeman who had helped us. "I thank you for stopping the fight and for not making a fuss with our boss." I told him. He smiled. "I thought you two had already learned to not let it happen again," he said, shaking my hand. And that was it. Hurricane season was approaching, and it was a miserably hot August. The air was so thick it hurt to breathe. Flying was a great way to cool off, but on the floor, life was boring and suffocating. While we were waiting for something to happen, Chip had a special way of handling heat. He said he put his mind in neutral and switched off. We were laughing about it, but we were all jealous. The rest of us were miserable. We try everything to stay fresh, but the air conditioning in the preparation room. I couldn't stand the heat. Then things got worse. Hurricane Bua was heading towards the Eastern Caribbean, directly towards us. I thought I had seen bad weather before, but at 25,000 feet, seeing the spiral pattern of the storm, I knew we were in serious trouble. 3 hours before the hurricane was expected to hit. To the Florida Tripe, we were grounded. All we could do was watch. Anyone who was out in that storm. I wouldn't get help for a while if they got into trouble. I've never been afraid of the weather in Kodiak. It was rough and cold, but I knew that only my mistakes or a mechanical failure could put me in danger. This was different. The hurricane was chaos. It was out of my control. The roofs of the buildings were flying like paper. The palms were bent at 90 degrees. Debris was flying everywhere. Anyone outside was in grave danger. During my time in Miami, I never got used to hurricanes. I had some scares while looking for damaged boats. We're lost sailors. Sometimes we stayed out too long, barely making it back. Sometimes we stayed out too long, just getting back to base. I loved the albatross, or the goat as we called it. It was solid and reliable like an old car. You had saved us many times. More importantly, we save others. Thanks to a tight-knit crew and a little luck. He had a knack for flying these old grummen. He had flown at least 6 different, and everyone had their own personality. But everyone behaved well with me. I felt like they knew I cared about them. Helicopters were beginning to replace the albatross, and I was thinking that my time in the Coast Guard, it could end when those old planes were retired. My next assignment was in New York City, more specifically in Brooklyn. It's not the first place that comes to mind for a Coast Guard station, but he was active and lively. It was here that my life took a turn. My future became clearer. Tincture had been sent to San Diego. Chip was stationed in New London, and I got the Big Apple. My beloved albatross was still flying, and I was happy. I was out of the hurricane zone and on the busy trade routes. The North Atlantic could also be stormy, but with all the traffic between Boston and Baltimore, we were keeping busy. Chip and I kept in touch, and sometimes we visited each other. I was so excited about San Diego, although he was complaining about having to go back to flight school to qualify in the Fairchild 623 provider, a fixed-wing aircraft and search and rescue on the ground. We felt bad for him, but we knew our time would come. Brooklyn was about to become at a helicopter training base. I might have to give up my goat. That made me sad. Call me old-fashioned, but that's how I felt. Life almost slipped away from me as Penny clung to me. With tears in my eyes, I had to admit that my eyes were a little wet too. When he finally let go of me, he took a step back and took a good look at her. I was stunned. She had always been pretty, but now she was absolutely beautiful. I just shook my head, unable to find words, but she could see everything I needed in my eyes. Ron, it's good to see you. You look so handsome in your uniform, and it seems higher than I remember, he said with amazement. I can't believe how beautiful you are, Penny. We have both changed a lot in the last few years. I said, smiling. It really has been so long. I can't believe it. You have to tell me everything. You said it was an amazing story, and I'm a writer, so I want to hear everything. He sawed. Well, I promised her something about my life story. To the guy who helped me find you, Warren Quincy. As a thank you, I joked. Well, as long as he's got us back together, I'm not complaining, he said, looking really happy. That made me feel great. But I'll still tell you everything. I promised. First, what did I want to talk about when you called me from Eugene? I had to ask. It had been on my mind for years. I wanted you to know that I broke up with my boyfriend, he said cautiously. I wanted you to know that I still care about you. I stood still for a moment. Then instinctively, he took a step towards her. I hugged her and kissed her. I kissed her deeply, and at that moment, all the doubts he had about us, they disappeared. She reciprocated the kiss, wrapping her arms around my neck. It was a kiss that neither of us will forget. We had waited so long for this moment, not sure if it would ever come. We were at the door of his apartment, lost in a kiss, not to worry if someone saw us. Finally, we were not separating, and I closed the door before I bring her closer again and kiss her more gently. Really, we've been waiting so long, and we didn't know how we felt about each other. I asked. Yes, we have. The look in his eyes told me everything. We had been lost before, and now we had met again. Neither of us wanted to be apart anymore. It was the beginning of the happiest moment of my life, and I knew in that instant. I'm not sure how long it took us to get to the bedroom, but it didn't matter. We didn't need to talk about that. Neither of us was new to this, but this first time with a woman, for the one I had waited so long for, it was going to be special, and we take our time, and it was deeply emotional for both. I felt as if I had been set free, as if I had found my love, still waiting for me after 7 years. Not only was he excited, I was relieved. She still felt the same way about me. I felt that nothing had changed, except that we were bigger, more mature, and Penny was even more beautiful. I wanted this time with her to last forever. Ron, can you stay tonight? Whisper. I mean, yes. I still have almost a week of leave. I can't believe my luck, finding you. We have time to be together, I promised. Yes, we don't have to rush. We can meet again, I smile. I can't think of anything I'd rather do, sir. She snuggled up on my shoulder and neck, and we just stayed there for a while. Whatever I had planned for dinner, I forget. If I was hungry, it was for Penny. The food could wait. It must be exciting to work on those big, white ships. He said later. Oh, well, maybe. But that's not what I do, I smiled. Or what are you doing? I'm a pilot, I said proudly. What? Are you a pilot? He exclaimed. Yes, I fly a plane called the Albatross. It is a kind of flying boat. It can land both on water and on land. Wow. Ron Francis from Aberdeen, Iowa. He's a pilot. That's amazing, she said, sounding genuinely surprised. How did that happen? How did you become a pilot and join the Coast Guard? It took me a while to tell the story, but for the next hour, I shared how I had found my love for flying thanks to Mom and Frank. I talked about how lucky I was to get into the Coast Guard. I left out the dangerous parts and my occasional mistakes, making it sound as exciting as I could. Wanted to impress my Penny. I didn't mention Liz at all. We were lying on his bed while I was talking, and she seemed really interested. I was also really looking forward to hearing her story. Dad got a new job in Dubuque, so he and Mom moved there right after college started. I stayed with a friend, Bobby Jenkins. You remember her, don't you? We were in almost all the same classes. I would pull her closer to me and kiss her shoulder, savoring her aroma and the softness of her skin. It felt like being at home again. I had 6 months left in my service, and I already knew I wasn't going to re-enlist. I loved the Coast Guard and flying Avian, but my time there was coming to an end. I needed to find a civilian job. Fortunately, I already had an offer from Frank to fly for North Island Airways. I wanted the job with all my might, but there was a problem. Penny had her career in New York. I didn't want to make her give up everything. What I had worked so hard for. I had waited so long to be with her, and I didn't want to lose her now. Frank had offered me the job as soon as I told him, but he almost ended up in the Coast Guard. I needed another pilot with my skills, and he was willing to wait for me. Normally, I would have accepted it immediately, but I told Frank that he had to think. On Penny's run first and talk to her. He smiled and said, I waited a long time for your mother, so I can wait a little longer for you. I was nervous to talk to Penny about Frank's offer. It meant leaving New York and make her start all over again. But I really wanted the job. I used to love the Pacific Northwest, and I was hoping Penny would like it too. But he could not long forget that she had worked to settle in New York. It took me a long time to gather the courage to mention it. Penny, I need to tell you something important, I started. She smiled. Yes? I'm not going to re-enlist in the Coast Guard. Well, my time is up, I said slowly. I know. You already told me that. He said to a smiling one. I wanted to let you know that I received a job offer. I said nervously. Really? Tell me more. Frank offered me a job on North Island. I replied, cake changing. Really? And what would you do? Flying. I'm a pilot and he needs another pilot. Yes, you're a pilot. He made fun of me. The problem is he's in Washington. In the Northwest, I continued to a doubting. Do I know where he is? He said, almost laughing. What's so funny? Asked. Are you? You're afraid? I don't want to go to Bellingham. Are you? She said, well, your career is just starting here in New York. I can't make you leave all that. I said gently, oh, Ron, you thought of me and you were willing to sacrifice you for me. Yes, I did. I've been waiting so long for us to be together. I was not going to let my dreams not separate. She sat on my lap and hugged me. My dear Ron, my typewriter is portable, and so am I. Are you going anywhere with you? I love you, and I'm not going to let you give up something important to you. Writers can write anywhere. Frank's neighbor Ernie Gann told me, he said, and then he kissed me. Frank told me about the offer. If it makes you happy, then I will be happy. Really? I just don't know what to say. Are you sure? Yes, I'm very sure. I love you, and I want to be with you. Besides, your mom told me how nice it is there. He said it's a great place to create children. Did he say it? How many children? Oh, I don't know. Maybe 2, maybe 10. She laughed. How about 2 to start with? And then we decided. That's fine. Whatever you say is Rio. You're having fun, right? You knew I wanted to keep flying. You knew about Frank's offer and didn't say a word. You were clever, I said, tickling her sides playfully. She twisted and laughed, trying to make me stop. That's fine. That's fine. I confess. He shouted, still laughing. I love you, Ron. I always have, and I always will. I'll go with you anywhere. I will have your children. I will be there for you every day," she said suddenly, completely serious. "Oh God, Penny, I'm so lucky. I have everything I've ever wanted. I'm so lucky. I have everything I've ever wanted. I'm so lucky," I whispered, hugging her tightly. This is the end of my interesting and instructive story. Subscribe so that you don't miss any more similar stories that might save your life. And see you tomorrow.